Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 15th of October, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. Dollar actually still looking bullish on the medium and long-term charts, bearish short-term, but lots of short-term upside targets on the point figure chart. So we still expect that to be reversed and the medium and long-term trends to win out. So short-term bearish will be short-lived, we expect. Eurodollar just starting to flatten against the dollar, bearish on the medium and long-term charts, of course, but we are just seeing that's flattening there as well. And the yen we're seeing also is the dollar is actually holding on to its strength there and recovering on the medium-term chart against the yen, so that's quite significant for the dollar there. Sterling is actually up this morning, more hopes of Brexit deal, and against the euro we're seeing it nudging those heights as well. So we are seeing upside targets some 2 and 7% higher, so looking quite good there. The Swissy we're seeing this morning that sterling is holding its own there as well, and against the Aussie dollar is looking strong. Bitcoin is sitting at $8,300, been fairly steady at about this level for the last few weeks. We've seen here on the daily chart. We're still bearish below the cloud here. Remember, this is my long-term, my medium, and my short-term charts. US stock markets this morning, we saw the S&P was down slightly overnight. Still short-term bullish, holding on to its medium and long-term trends. So the market has looked better since last week's rises. The NatGas also looking better there as well. And the Dow was down slightly, but still bullish on the short, medium and long-term chart. The Russell 2000 is bearish on the medium and long-term chart, but turned bullish also on the short-term chart. All of these markets need to break to new highs. They're just sitting below resistance. We're seeing the futures this morning, the S&P future up 0.5%, the Nasdaq E-mini up another 0.5%. Those markets looking pretty strong. Looking at the UK market, the top 100 index is up 0.2%. It's still bullish on the short-term chart just, but the medium and long-term charts are less clear than in the US. And the Midcaps in the UK we're seeing here had a big sharp rise last week, and that's put them into bullish territory all round. So looking, mid-caps in the UK actually looking better than the blue chips at the moment. The DAX is up over 0.75% this morning, and the CAC 40 up nearly 0.9%. So we're seeing here that's strong on all three time frames. Japan had a pretty good night overnight as well, up 1.5%. The Hang Seng was down very slightly, and Shanghai was down 0.5%, but still looking pretty good for a transition onto long-term bullish, which we haven't seen for for a good couple of years. So the Japanese market's starting to look a little bit better. The Sensex in India was up 0.2%, not enough to take the short and medium-term charts bullish, but the long-term trend is still pretty clear on the Sensex with good upside targets. The Aussie market was up slightly overnight, holding on to its bullish trend on all three time frames as well. Brent crude down this morning, sitting at 58.99, so we're clearly below that $60 mark. We're not yet bearish on the short-term chart, but the price is heading that way, and of course the medium and long-term charts are showing bearish. We've got a downside target on the short-term chart of $58, so it looks like we've got another dollar to fall. WTI, much the same picture, of course. US NatGas sitting in the doldrums at $2.28, no big changes there. Gold sitting at down slightly this morning, sitting at $14.92, just bearish on the short-term chart, and the same on silver, although silver is actually looking a little bit better. If we look at US 10-year yields, we're sitting at 1.7%. We've come back a little bit yesterday, but the short-term trend is up for yields, and of course that means bond prices are still falling, and we're seeing the German bond is really now at risk of breaking the medium-term trend for the first time in a while, and we're seeing a breakdown here in bond prices, so the bond market bubble might be coming to an end. Looking at individual stocks now, so we start by looking at the Dow. We see it was quite a lot of red in the screen last night. We had a few stocks up. 3M were up 1.5%, Nike were up 1%. 3M chart though still looking pretty grim, and we're seeing here the downtrend showing up really clearly on the relative. I've recently put these trends on this chart, so just see the trend and the relative there. Cisco have not been a great looking chart of late, and they're really rolling over. They're bearish on that medium-term chart, and the long-term chart just starting to break, and we're seeing the breakdown on the relative breaking out of that trend, and we've got downside targets of 10 and 12% on multiple charts. So we are seeing Cisco there, the worst performer yesterday, and the chart confirming that things are not looking great for them. Looking at the NASDAQ 100, Tesla were the best performer yesterday. They were up 3.6%. That's taking them into medium-term bullish territory, looking like an ascending triangle breakout on the long-term chart. And we're starting to break out of this bearish relative trend. We've still got work to do. It would be good to see a relative strength high there. They've underperformed the Dow by 30% this year, so they've still got a lot to do to catch up. And we saw Core 8 retail, they were down 4.5%, and Cisco we already mentioned. Expedia, quite a few fallers still in the NASDAQ, and that chart looking really terrible, underperforming the Dow by more than 50% this year on Core 8. Looking at the Aussie market, the best performer was, if we look here, Qantas Airways. They were up nearly 3%, and the chart actually looking pretty good on that medium-term chart, and the relative trend really lovely the last few weeks. So, and we've got upside targets of 6 and 9% higher. So Qantas shares looking pretty good. On the downside, Southern Cross Media Group, they were lower, 18%, and that has they've really fallen out of bed. They were already in bearish territory on the daily cloud, and that's what happens when you're in bearish territory. You get big surprises to the downside, and we're seeing the relative trend breaking down there as well. In India, the best performer was Eicher Motors Limited. They were up 4%, and the chart looking like it's trying to make a bit of a recovery here. We're seeing a recovery in the relative. There we see the life prices coming in from Yahoo Finance, and if we look at the worst performer, it's India Bulls Housing, down 5%, and that chart really falling out of bed. Taking a look now at the UK market, the top 100 stocks this morning, AB Foods is the best performer, up 2.5%. And we see here, though, that the chart isn't looking great. The relative was better for a lot of this year, better than the Dow, but now we've actually performed worse, and we've got downside targets, multiple downside targets. So AB Foods not looking so good. Ocado were the second best performer this morning, and they're looking better, and they've outperformed the market by 40% this year. So looking very good there. On the downside, we've got WPP again. They're down 1.3%, and the chart looks like it's really breaking down on that medium term, and the relative potentially breaking down. Target 7% lower there. The big news this morning in the 250 is the worst performer is, well, it's actually now not the worst performer. We've got Vesuvius Group now down 9%, and that chart looking grim, but Woodford Payton Capital Trust down 7% on the news that will be wound up. Nvidia, the best performer in the top 250, up 14%, not enough to change the picture here, and Hayes also up 8%, but again, not enough to change the picture there either. The relative really breaking down. Looking now into Europe, the Euro Stoxx 50, the best performing stock is Airbus, up 1.8%. This chart still has a great uptrend, although the medium-term chart is turning down, and we are seeing a fall out of the relative here with downside targets of around 16-17%. So it's looking a bit worrying for Airbus there. On the downside, we've only got two stocks down. That's Vinci in Paris. They're down 0.6%. The chart's still looking great though. Really good uptrend there on the relative. And Eurodollar in Spain, again, great uptrend, and the chart looking pretty good too. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.